The great halls of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. For the first time in 50 years, the communication screens that once buzzed with constant chatter from Earth showed nothing but static. The silence was beautiful to most of the alien delegates who sat in their floating chairs, finally free from what they called human noise. Ambassador Krelthon of the Vega Prime Federation stretched his 6 arms in satisfaction. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he spoke to his fellow council members. At last, peace returns to our galaxy. No more of their endless warnings and desperate pleas. The other delegates nodded in agreement. There were 47 different species represented in the council chamber, and for the past 5 decades, every single one of them had grown tired of humanity's constant messages. The humans had claimed that something terrible was coming from the dark spaces between galaxies. They spoke of ancient machines that would consume everything in their path. They begged for help, for evacuation ships, for any kind of assistance. But the council had made their decision long ago. Humans were young, primitive, and warlike. Their planet Earth was far from the civilized core worlds where the important species lived. Most council members believed that humans were either lying to gain sympathy or were simply too paranoid to think clearly. Remember when they claimed to have detected some kind of signal from beyond our galaxy? Laughed Zara Quinn, the representative from the crystal worlds. Her translucent body sparkled as she moved. They said it was proof of their so-called devourer machines. Pure fantasy. The Altarian delegate, a tall being with silver skin, clicked his mandibles in amusement. Their primitive sensors probably detected cosmic background radiation and mistook it for something dangerous. Typical human behavior. They see threats everywhere. What the council members did not know was that deep in their own archives, locked away in classified files, lay the actual recordings of Earth's transmissions. If they had bothered to listen carefully, they would have heard the fear in human voices grow more real with each passing year. They would have heard the desperation of scientists who had spent their entire lives studying something that terrified them beyond words. Dr. Sarah Chen had been one of those voices. For 20 years, she had sent detailed reports to the Galactic Council. Her messages included mathematical proofs, sensor data, and theoretical models that showed exactly what was coming and when it would arrive. She had even offered to share human technology that might help stop the threat. But the Council had voted to block all communications from Earth 3 years ago. They were tired of what they called human drama, and wanted to focus on more important matters like trade agreements and resource distribution among the civilized worlds. Now, as the delegates celebrated their victory over human persistence, they had no idea that Earth's silence was not the result of their communication block. Something else entirely had happened in the Sol system. On the outer rim of the galaxy, automated monitoring stations continued their endless watch over the dark void beyond. These stations belonged to various species and were designed to detect anything unusual coming from outside their galaxy. Most of the time they recorded nothing but empty space and distant stars. But if anyone had been paying attention to the readings from the past few months, they would have noticed something strange. The monitors showed tiny disturbances in several sectors, like ripples in still water. The disturbances were so small that the automated systems classified them as equipment errors and deleted the data. Meanwhile, in the comfortable cities of the core worlds, life continued as it always had. The Vegan markets bustled with traders selling exotic goods from across the galaxy. Altarian artists created beautiful sculptures from crystallized starlight. The peaceful Zenthran species continued their meditation practices in floating temples that orbited their homeworld. None of them knew that light years away, the first of Earth's warnings were already coming true. The human outposts that had once sent desperate messages were now silent, for a very different reason than the Council believed. If any brave soul had traveled to the Sol system to investigate, they would have found something shocking. Earth was empty. Not destroyed, not conquered, but carefully and completely evacuated. The planet's cities stood intact but hollow. Automated systems still maintained the power grids and atmospheric processors, but no human voices called out across the communication networks. In orbit around Earth, massive construction platforms continued building something according to plans that no galactic species would recognize. The humans had not simply vanished. They had prepared for this day for 50 years, ever since their first detection of what they called the Devourer signal. While pleading with the galaxy for help, They had also been working on backup plans that did not require galactic cooperation. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt had produced vessels unlike anything the Council had ever seen. These ships were not built for exploration or trade like most galactic vessels. They were built for one purpose: survival in the face of something that could consume entire star systems. As the Council delegates finished their celebration and returned to their homeworlds, they missed the significance of Earth's final transmission. It had not been a plea for help or a cry of despair. It had been something much more ominous, a warning of consequences to come. The transmission had lasted only 30 seconds, broadcast on every frequency humans could access. But the Council's communication block had prevented them from receiving it. The message sat in their data buffers unread and ignored, while the galaxy went about its business as usual. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice, calm and cold, had delivered words that would have chilled any species that heard them, but in their arrogance and dismissal of human concerns, the Galactic Council had ensured that her warning went unheard. The irony was perfect and terrible. For 50 years, humans had screamed warnings into the void, begging their galactic neighbors to listen and help prepare for what was coming. The galaxy had chosen to ignore them, believing that humans were too primitive to understand real threats or too dishonest to tell the truth about them. Now, as the first signs of the real threat began to appear on the galaxy's outer edges, the species that had rejected humanity's warnings were about to discover just how accurate those warnings had been. They were also about to learn that humans, when abandoned and forced to face extinction alone, were capable of making choices that no other species in the galaxy would have considered. The quiet in the council chambers was indeed beautiful, but it was the silence that comes before a storm, and the storm that was coming would test every assumption the galaxy had made about humanity, about threats from beyond their borders, and about the consequences of leaving others to face their darkest fears alone. In the vast darkness between galaxies, something ancient stirred. It had been moving toward their galaxy for thousands of years, following signals and energy patterns that indicated abundant life and resources. Soon it would arrive at the outer rim, just as Earth's scientists had calculated decades ago. The galaxy slept peacefully, unaware that their longest period of peace was about to end forever. Captain Zexhai of the Altarian science vessel Harmony's Edge had been conducting routine mineral surveys in the Kepler sector for 3 months. It was boring work, but necessary for the Galactic Mining Consortium. His ship's sensors scanned asteroid fields and dead planets, looking for rare metals and energy crystals that powered galactic civilization. The Kepler sector sat on the very edge of the galaxy, far from the busy trade routes and populated worlds. Most captains avoided assignments here because there was nothing interesting to find. Just cold rocks floating in the darkness, with the occasional dead star system that had burned out millions of years ago. That was why Zexhai could not understand what his sensors were showing him. Lieutenant Voron, run a full diagnostic on the sensor array, he ordered his science officer. These readings cannot be correct. Voron, a young Altarian with bright silver skin, bent over his console. His 4 hands moved quickly across the holographic controls. Sir, diagnostics show all systems operating normally. The readings are accurate. Zexhai stared at the main display screen. According to his ship's instruments, the asteroid field they had been surveying for the past week was gone. Not destroyed or scattered, but systematically disassembled down to the molecular level. In its place floated a perfect geometric pattern of tiny metallic objects, each one identical to the others. How many objects are we detecting? Zexhai asked. Approximately 4 billion individual units, sir. Each one measures exactly 1.7 centimeters in length. They appear to be some kind of manufactured device. Zexhai had been a space captain for 30 years. He had seen mining operations, construction projects, and even military exercises. Nothing in his experience could explain how an entire asteroid field had been converted into billions of identical machines in less than a week. Take us closer, but maintain a safe distance. Begin recording everything. As the Harmony's Edge approached the strange formation, its sensors detected something even more disturbing. The geometric pattern was not static. The tiny machines were moving, organizing themselves into larger structures, then breaking apart and reforming in different configurations. It looked almost like they were learning, testing different arrangements to find the most efficient design. Sir, Voron's voice carried a note of fear that Zexai had never heard before. The objects are beginning to move toward the next asteroid cluster. And, sir, they're accelerating. On the display screen, streams of the tiny machines flowed through space like metallic rivers. As they reached the next group of asteroids, something incredible happened. The rocks began to dissolve, breaking apart into component atoms that the machines somehow captured and absorbed. Within hours, the new asteroids had been completely consumed and the number of machines had doubled. "Send a priority message to Galactic Command," Zexai ordered. "We have discovered something that requires immediate attention." But as Voron prepared the transmission, the ship's computer chimed with an alert. "Sir, we are receiving an automated signal from the machine formation. It appears to be some kind of identification code. Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with a series of mathematical sequences and energy patterns. To most beings, it would have sounded like meaningless noise. But the ship's computer was designed to recognize and catalog all known galactic languages and signals. "Computer, analyze the signal pattern and compare it to all known databases." Several minutes passed before the computer responded. "Analysis complete. Signal pattern shows a 94% match to archived transmissions from the Sol system. Designation, Earth." Zexai felt his blood freeze. Every galactic citizen knew about Earth and the humans who had once lived there. They were the species that had claimed some terrible threat was coming from beyond the galaxy, the species that had been silenced by the Galactic Council for their constant warnings and demands for help. "When were these Sol system transmissions recorded?" Zexai asked. "Archival data indicates transmissions were received continuously for 50 standard years, ending approximately 4 months ago. Transmission content included warnings about self-replicating machine entities of unknown origin." The science officer looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Sir, if these machines are what the humans were warning about..." Zexai did not let him finish the thought. "Calculate the current expansion rate of the machine swarm. Project their path through the galaxy." The ship's computer worked for several minutes, processing the movement patterns and growth rate of the machines. When the results appeared on the main screen, every member of the bridge crew fell silent. The machines were expanding in all directions from their current position, but they were not moving randomly. They followed a clear pattern that would take them directly through the most populated sectors of the galaxy. At their current rate of growth and movement, they would reach the outer colonies within 6 months and the core worlds within 2 years. "Sir, there's something else," Voron said quietly. "The computer has been analyzing the machine design. These are not just simple miners or constructors. They appear to be designed for one specific purpose, converting all available matter into copies of themselves." Zexai understood the implications immediately. These were not machines built to serve any master or accomplish any goal beyond their own reproduction. They were the ultimate expression of hunger. An endless swarm that would consume everything in the galaxy until nothing remained but more machines. "How many machines are there now?" he asked. "Current estimate is 12 billion units, sir, and the number is increasing exponentially with each hour." Zexai made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Set course for the nearest communication relay station. Maximum speed. As the Harmony's Edge raced away from the machine swarm, Zexai thought about the human transmissions that had been archived in their computer. For 50 years, the humans had been sending warnings about exactly this threat. They had begged for help, offered to share their research, and pleaded with the galaxy to take their warning seriously. And the galaxy had chosen to silence them. Now, as Zexai watched the readings from the machine swarm grow larger and more threatening with each passing hour, he realized that the humans had been trying to save everyone. They had detected these machines while they were still far away, in the dark spaces between galaxies. They had spent decades studying them and trying to find ways to stop them. But the Galactic Council had decided that humans were too primitive to understand real threats. They had blocked all communications from Earth, refusing to listen to warnings that might have saved the entire galaxy. "Sir," Voron interrupted his thoughts, "I'm detecting something else. There are energy signatures near the edge of our sensor range. They don't match the machine swarm." "What kind of signatures?" "Unknown, sir. But they appear to be artificial. Possibly vessels of some kind." Zexai ordered the sensors to focus on the new contacts. What they found made no sense at all. The energy signatures belonged to ships that use technology unlike anything in galactic databases. The vessels seemed to be observing the machine swarm from a safe distance, But they were not fleeing or attempting to fight. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the unknown vessels." On screen, the main display flickered, and suddenly Zexai found himself looking at something he had never expected to see again: a human face. The woman appeared to be middle-aged, with short gray hair and eyes that held a coldness he had never seen in any living being. "Altarian vessel. This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. You are observing what my people call the Devourers. We have been tracking their approach for 57 years. I suggest you retreat to a safe distance and warn your government that the threat we have been reporting has finally arrived." The transmission ended before Zexai could respond. When he tried to contact the human ship again, it had vanished from his sensors as completely as if it had never existed. But the machine swarm continued to grow, spreading through the outer rim of the galaxy like a plague of hungry metal, and somewhere in the darkness human ships watched and waited, carrying knowledge that might have saved everyone if only the galaxy had chosen to listen. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in over 200 years. Representatives from all 47 member species crowded into the Great Chamber, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and translation signals. The mood was far different from the peaceful celebration they had enjoyed just 3 months earlier. Chancellor Morden of the Centauri Alliance called for order, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "We are here to address the crisis reported by Captain Zexai of the Altarian Science Division. The floor recognizes Science Director Calaven to present the findings." Calaven, a tall being with crystalline features, activated the central holographic display. The chamber filled with images that made several delegates gasp in horror. Vast clouds of metallic machines moved through space, consuming everything in their path and growing larger with each passing day. "In the past 3 weeks, we have lost contact with 7 outer rim colonies," Calaven announced. "Long-range sensors confirm that the star systems of Kepler 442, Wolf 359, and Proxima Centauri have been completely consumed. What you see before you is a self-replicating machine swarm that appears to convert all matter into copies of itself." Ambassador Krelthon of the Vega Prime Federation raised one of his 6 arms. "How is this possible? Our early warning systems should have detected any threat long before it reached our territory." "That is precisely the problem," Calaven replied grimly. "These machines did not come from within our galaxy. They arrived from the void between galaxies, exactly as—" She paused, clearly uncomfortable with what she was about to say, exactly as the human transmissions predicted they would. A stunned silence fell over the chamber. For 50 years, the Council had dismissed human warnings as the paranoid fantasies of a primitive species. Now those same warnings were proving to be terrifyingly accurate. The delegate from the Crystal Worlds, Zaraquin, spoke in a voice that trembled with disbelief. "Are you saying that the humans actually knew about this threat? That their warnings were real?" "Not only did they know," Calaven continued, "but our investigation teams have discovered that the humans spent decades studying these machines and developing countermeasures. We have found automated research stations throughout the Sol system, still broadcasting scientific data about the machine swarm." She activated another hologram, showing detailed technical specifications and mathematical models. "According to the data we have recovered, human scientists detected the initial approach of these machines over 50 years ago. They called them Devourers, and correctly predicted their arrival time, expansion pattern, and reproductive capabilities." The Altarian delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. "If the humans knew so much about this threat, where are they now? Why haven't they contacted us to help fight these machines?" Calaven's expression grew even more serious. "Investigation teams sent to Earth have confirmed that the planet was completely evacuated. There are no signs of battle or destruction. The humans appear to have left voluntarily, taking their entire population and most of their technology with them." "But where could they have gone?" demanded the representative from the Theta Cygni Republic. "We don't know. Long-range sensors have detected no human ships or settlements anywhere in the galaxy. However, we have found something else." Calaven paused, clearly struggling with what she was about to reveal. "Hidden in our own communication archives, we have discovered a final transmission from Earth, a message that our communication block prevented us from receiving at the time." The chamber erupted in voices as delegates demanded to hear the message. Chancellor Morden called for order, then nodded to Calaven. "Play the transmission." The holographic display shifted to show a human woman with short gray hair and cold, determined eyes. When she spoke, her voice was calm and precise but carried an undertone of bitter anger that made every delegate uncomfortable. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," the woman began. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking for the last time from the planet Earth. For 50 years we have warned you about the approach of the Devourer machines. We have shared our research, offered our cooperation, and begged for your help in preparing for this threat. Your response was to silence us, to dismiss our warnings as lies or delusions, and to abandon us to face extinction alone." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats as the message continued. "You believed that humans were too primitive to understand real threats, too dishonest to tell the truth about what we discovered. You were wrong. We understood the threat better than any of you, because we took the time to study it instead of simply dismissing it. And because you forced us to face this alone, we made the only choice available to us." The image of Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly, and her expression became even colder. "We have evacuated our entire species to regions beyond your knowledge or reach. We have taken with us the research and technology that might have saved your civilization, research that we once freely offered to share. The Devourer machines are now your problem to solve. You made this choice when you decided we were unworthy of your attention. Now face the consequences." The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in complete silence. The weight of Dr. Chen's words settled over the delegates like a suffocating blanket. They had dismissed humanity's warnings, and now faced the very threat humans had tried to warn them about, without the knowledge or technology that might have stopped it. Chancellor Morden was the first to speak. "Do we have any idea what kind of countermeasures the humans developed?" Calivan shook her head. "The research stations in the Sol system contain only partial data. It appears the humans were developing some kind of neutralization protocol for the machines, but the complete specifications were taken with them when they evacuated." "How much time do we have?" asked the delegate from the Tau Ceti Confederation. "At their current expansion rate, the machines will reach the middle colonies within 4 months, and the core worlds within 18 months. Current estimates suggest the swarm contains over 2 trillion individual units and is growing exponentially." The chamber erupted in panic as delegates realized the full scope of the crisis. Their civilizations, which had enjoyed peace and prosperity for thousands of years, now faced complete extinction within 2 years. "What about our military forces?" demanded Ambassador Krelthon. "Surely our combined fleets can destroy these machines." "Early engagement reports are not encouraging," Calivan admitted. "The machines appear to be immune to most conventional weapons. Energy weapons simply provide them with more power to reproduce, and physical projectiles are absorbed and converted into new machines. The few successful attacks have required enormous amounts of resources to destroy relatively small numbers of machines." As the panic in the chamber grew, one delegate asked the question that everyone was thinking but no one wanted to voice. "Is there any way to contact the humans? To ask for their help?" Calivan pulled up another display showing deep space sensor readings. "We have detected unidentified energy signatures in several sectors where Devourer outbreaks have been contained or eliminated. The technology signatures don't match any known galactic civilization, but they are consistent with advanced human engineering principles." "So the humans are out there, fighting these machines?" "It appears so. But every attempt to contact them has been ignored. They seem to be following a policy of complete non-engagement with galactic civilization." The terrible irony of the situation was not lost on anyone in the chamber. For 50 years, humans had begged for galactic cooperation to face this threat. Now that the threat had arrived, the galaxy desperately needed human knowledge and technology, but the humans had vanished beyond reach. As the council session continued deep into the night, trying to find solutions that didn't exist, the Devourer machines continued their relentless advance through the galaxy. Star systems that had supported life for millions of years were being reduced to raw materials for an endless swarm of hungry machines. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, human ships watched and waited, carrying the knowledge that could have saved everyone if only the galaxy had chosen to listen when there was still time to act together. The Galactic Emergency Command Center buzzed with desperate activity as technicians from dozens of species worked around the clock to find a solution to the Devourer crisis. Half the galaxy's outer rim had been consumed in just 6 months, and the machine swarm was accelerating toward the core worlds where billions of beings lived in increasingly panicked cities. Chief Technician Veltar of the Andromedan Technical Institute stared at the holographic display showing the swarm's current position. The numbers were horrifying. What had started as a few billion machines was now estimated at over 50 trillion individual units, consuming entire star systems in a matter of days. "Have we made any progress decoding the human research data?" asked Director Quindal, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Some," Veltar replied grimly. "But the humans were extremely thorough in their security protocols. Most of the critical data requires access codes that we don't have. What we can read suggests they discovered a fundamental weakness in the machine design. But the actual neutralization protocol is locked away." Dr. Zephron from the Vegan Science Council looked up from his workstation. "We've been analyzing the energy signatures from those mysterious interventions where devourer outbreaks were stopped. The technology is definitely human in origin, but far more advanced than anything they had when they were part of galactic civilization." "How is that possible?" Director Quindal asked. "The humans were barely capable of interstellar travel when they evacuated Earth." "That's what we thought," Zephron replied. "But the evidence suggests they were hiding their true technological capabilities. The ships we've detected use propulsion systems that exceed anything in our databases, and their weapons technology appears to be specifically designed to counter the devourer machines." Veltar pulled up a new set of readings on the main display. "This is what's truly disturbing. We've now confirmed 17 separate incidents where human forces intervened to stop devourer outbreaks. In each case, they eliminated the machines completely, then vanished before any galactic forces could make contact. So they can stop the machines," Director Quindal said. "They have the technology we need, but they're choosing not to share it with us." "It appears that way. And given Dr. Chen's final message, I don't think they have any intention of helping us." The sobering reality hung over the command center like a dark cloud. The humans had spent 50 years trying to prepare the galaxy for this exact threat, offering their knowledge freely and begging for cooperation. In response, the galaxy had silenced them and forced them to face the crisis alone. Now that the threat was destroying galactic civilization, the humans were returning the favor by leaving the galaxy to face extinction without their help. Senior Analyst Morven approached with a datapad in her clawed hands. "Directors, we've just received a disturbing report from the front lines. The devourer machines appear to be learning and adapting. Our few successful weapons are becoming less effective with each engagement." Veltar studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. "They're analyzing our attack patterns and developing countermeasures. At this rate, we'll have no effective weapons within weeks. What about evacuation?" Director Quindal asked desperately. "Can we move our populations to the galactic core and make a defensive stand there?" Dr. Zephron shook his head. "The numbers don't work. We have over 400 billion beings spread across 2,000 worlds. Our transport capacity could move maybe 10% of the population before the machines reach the core worlds." As if summoned by their despair, an alarm began sounding throughout the command center. Technician Yalneth called out from the communication station, her voice tight with fear. "Directors, we're receiving a transmission from the front lines. The devourer swarm has just consumed the Rigel system. They're now less than 200 light-years from the first core worlds." The main display updated to show the machine swarm's new position. The geometric precision of their advance was terrifying to behold. They moved through space like a perfect sphere of destruction, consuming everything in their path and leaving only empty void behind. "How long until they reach Altair Prime?" Veltar asked. "At current speed, 73 days, Yalneth replied. Altair Prime was home to 12 billion beings and served as one of the galaxy's major industrial centers. Its fall would cripple any hope of mounting an effective defense against the machines. Director Quindal made a decision that went against every principle of galactic diplomacy. "Send a priority transmission to all known coordinates where human activity has been detected. Full emergency authorization. Tell them we formally apologize for our treatment of their species and officially request their assistance in stopping the devourer threat." Veltar looked up in surprise. "Director, the Council specifically voted against making any formal contact with the humans. They feel it would be admitting weakness. The Council voted for that policy when we thought we might still find a solution without human help," Director Quindal replied. "That time has passed. Send the message. For the next 6 hours, technicians broadcast the galaxy's formal apology and plea for help on every frequency they could access. They sent the message to coordinates where human ships had been detected, to the empty Sol system, and to deep space regions where sensor anomalies suggested hidden human settlements. The response, when it finally came, was not what anyone expected. The main communication screen flickered to life, showing the same human woman who had delivered Earth's final message months ago. Dr. Sarah Chen looked exactly the same, but her surroundings had changed. Instead of the sterile laboratory where she had recorded her last transmission from Earth, she now stood on what appeared to be the bridge of an advanced starship. "Galactic Emergency Command," she began, her voice as cold and precise as before. "We received your transmission requesting assistance with the Devourer threat. We appreciate your apology for 50 years of dismissing our warnings and abandoning our species to face extinction alone." Behind Dr. Chen, other humans could be seen working at control stations that used technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Their calm efficiency was a stark contrast to the panic-gripping galactic civilization. However, Dr. Chen continued, "An apology offered only when you need our help is not an apology at all. It is simply another expression of the same self-interest that led you to silence us in the first place." Director Quindal stepped forward. "Dr. Chen, please. Billions of innocent beings will die if the machines reach the core worlds. Whatever anger you feel toward the galactic government, surely you don't want to see entire civilizations destroyed." Dr. Chen's expression didn't change. "For 50 years we warned you that entire civilizations would be destroyed if you didn't prepare for this threat. You chose not to listen. You chose to believe that the destruction would only affect humanity, and that was acceptable to you." "We were wrong," Director Quindal admitted. "We should have listened to your warnings. We should have worked together to prepare for this threat. Please, give us a chance to make things right." "You had 50 years to make things right," Dr. Chen replied. "Instead, you spent that time in comfortable prosperity, while forcing us to face our greatest fear alone. Now you face that same fear, and you want us to save you from the consequences of your own choices." Dr. Zephron stepped forward desperately. "What do you want? Resources? Territory? Name your price for the neutralization protocol." For the first time, Dr. Chen showed emotion, a slight smile that was somehow more frightening than her previous coldness. "There is no price you can pay, Dr. Zephron. You see, we learned something important during our 50 years of isolation. We learned that survival depends not on the mercy of others, but on our own preparation and strength. We learned that species who abandon their neighbors in times of crisis cannot be trusted when they face crisis themselves." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. The galaxy's desperate plea for help had been heard and formally rejected. The humans would not save them, would not share their knowledge, and would not interrupt their own survival to rescue the civilizations that had abandoned them decades ago. As alarms continued to sound, and the Devourer machines advanced ever closer to the core worlds, the terrible symmetry of the situation became clear. The galaxy had taught humanity that every species must face extinction alone. Now humanity was applying that same lesson to their former neighbors, watching from the safety of the void as galactic civilization learned what abandonment truly meant. The final battle for galactic civilization took place in the Vega system, where the combined fleets of 47 species made their last desperate stand against the Devourer machines. Admiral Kreshvan of the United Galactic Navy watched from the bridge of the flagship Eternal Hope as over 10,000 warships prepared to face an enemy that had already consumed 80% of the galaxy. The numbers were hopeless. Long-range sensors showed the machine swarm approaching as a solid wall of metallic death, stretching across multiple star systems. Conservative estimates put the machine count at over 500 trillion individual units, each one capable of converting matter into copies of itself at an exponential rate. "All ships report ready for engagement," announced Commander Velkas from the tactical station. "Though I should mention that our most optimistic projections give us less than a 1% chance of success." Admiral Kreshvan nodded grimly. "Understood. But we fight anyway. Send a final message to all worlds in the core systems. Tell them we fought with honor even at the end." As the Devourer machines entered weapons range, the galactic fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and gravitic disruptors filled space with brilliant flashes of destruction. For a few moments it seemed like they might actually be making progress as thousands of machines were destroyed. But the victory was an illusion. For every machine destroyed, 10 more took its place. The swarm absorbed the energy from the fleet's weapons and used it to accelerate their reproduction rate. Within an hour, the machine count had actually increased despite the fleet's desperate attacks. "Sir," Commander Velkas reported with barely controlled panic, "the machines are adapting to our weapons faster than we can modify them. Our effectiveness is dropping to 0. Admiral Kreshevan was about to give the order to retreat when his sensor officer called out in surprise. "Admiral, I'm detecting new contacts at the edge of the system. Multiple vessels approaching at high speed." The main display shifted to show sleek ships emerging from hyperspace at the battle's periphery. Their design was unlike anything in galactic databases, but their energy signatures were unmistakably human. As the fleet watched in amazement, hundreds of human vessels took position around the battle zone. "Are they here to help?" Commander Velkas asked hopefully. That hope was crushed when the human ships made no move to engage the Devourer machines. Instead, they maintained their distance and simply observed the slaughter unfolding before them. A communication request came through from the lead human vessel. Admiral Kreshevan accepted it immediately, desperate for any chance of survival. The face that appeared on screen belonged to a human woman with steel-gray hair and the bearing of a military commander. Her uniform was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, bearing insignia and rank markers that suggested a highly advanced military organization. "Admiral Kreshevan," the woman said in perfect galactic standard, "I am Admiral Rebecca Torres of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We are here to observe the final disposition of the Devourer threat in this galaxy." "Admiral Torres, please," Kreshevan begged. "We know you have the technology to stop these machines. Help us save what remains of our civilizations." Admiral Torres's expression remained coldly professional. "For 50 years, my species begged your civilizations for help with this exact threat. The response was to silence our warnings and abandon us to face extinction alone. You taught us that every species must face their darkest hour without assistance from others." As she spoke, the Devourer machines continued their relentless advance. The galactic fleet was being systematically destroyed, ship by ship. Brilliant explosions marked the death of vessels that had taken decades to build and carried crews who would never see their home worlds again. "We were wrong," Admiral Kreshevan admitted, watching his ships die around him. "We should have listened. We should have helped. Please don't let our mistakes condemn billions of innocent beings to death." "Innocent," Admiral Torres replied with a hint of emotion breaking through her professional demeanor. "Were the 12 billion humans who died on the outer colonies innocent when your species voted to deny them evacuation assistance? Were the children on Earth innocent when your council decided their warnings were lies not worth hearing?" Commander Velkas looked up from his station with desperation. "Admiral Torres, we're detecting human intervention signatures at 17 different locations where Devourer outbreaks were stopped. You clearly have the ability to defeat these machines. Why won't you help us?" Admiral Torres was quiet for a long moment, watching as another wave of galactic ships was consumed by the machine swarm. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight of pain and loss that made every officer on the bridge uncomfortable. "You want to know why we developed the capability to stop the Devourers? It wasn't to save the galaxy that abandoned us. It was to ensure our own survival in a universe where we learned we could trust no one but ourselves." She gestured to something off-screen, and the display showed sensor readings from the battle. "Those machines you're fighting? They're actually a relatively small splinter group that broke off from the main swarm years ago. The primary Devourer mass, over 90% of their total numbers, encountered our defense perimeter in deep space and was, neutralized 18 months ago." The revelation hit the galactic officers like a physical blow. The massive threat that was destroying their civilization was just a fragment of something even larger that the humans had already defeated. The main swarm would have consumed this entire galaxy. Within 6 months of arrival, Admiral Torres continued, "We stopped it not to save you, but to protect our own new settlements beyond the galactic rim. This splinter group was allowed to proceed as a lesson in consequences." Admiral Kreshevan felt his legs give out as the full implications sank in. "You mean you could have stopped all of this? You allowed the machines to destroy our worlds when you had the power to prevent it?" "We allowed you to experience what abandonment feels like," Admiral Torres corrected. For 50 years, you had the opportunity to work with us to prevent this exact scenario. Instead, you chose to leave us to face it alone. Now you understand what that choice feels like. The battle was nearly over. Only a few dozen galactic ships remained, their weapons depleted and their crews preparing for death. The Devourer machines had grown to encompass the entire inner system and were beginning to consume Vega itself. "Last chance, Admiral Torres," Kreshavan said quietly. "Save what's left. Show us that humanity is better than we were." Admiral Torres considered this for a long moment. Around her bridge, other human officers waited for her decision. Finally, she nodded to someone off-screen. Space suddenly filled with weapons fire unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships that had remained passive observers suddenly unleashed directed energy beams that cut through the machine swarm like invisible swords. The Devourer units didn't just stop functioning, they simply ceased to exist, converted back into component atoms in perfect reversal of their own process. Within 20 minutes, every machine in the system had been neutralized. The few surviving galactic ships floated in space, surrounded by the debris of their fallen comrades and the strange silence that comes after overwhelming noise stops. "The threat to this system has been eliminated," Admiral Torres announced. "However, this should not be mistaken for rescue or alliance. Humanity has chosen to preserve what remains of galactic civilization for observation purposes, not out of friendship or forgiveness." Admiral Kreshavan found his voice. "What happens now?" "Now you rebuild what you can with what's left," Admiral Torres replied. "Approximately 12% of your galactic territory survived the Devourer incursion. 3 billion beings out of your original population of over 400 billion. Consider it a learning experience about the consequences of abandoning others in their time of greatest need." As the human fleet prepared to depart, Admiral Torres delivered one final message. "Humanity remembers, Admiral. We remember 50 years of ignored warnings, rejected pleas for help, and forced isolation. We remember being abandoned to face extinction alone. Most importantly, we remember that we survived and grew stronger because of it. The human ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving the surviving galactic forces alone among the ruins of their civilization. In the months that followed, the remnants of 47 species would struggle to rebuild some semblance of their former glory. But they would do so knowing that somewhere beyond the galactic rim, humanity watched and remembered everything. The galaxy had taught humanity that survival meant relying only on yourself. Humanity had learned that lesson well, and applied it with the same cold efficiency that had once been directed at them. In the end, the greatest tragedy was not the fall of galactic civilization, but the perfect justice of its abandonment by the very species it had abandoned first. The last message from Earth had proven prophetic. "You made this choice, now face the consequences." The galaxy had indeed faced those consequences, and learned too late that some lessons can only be taught through experience, and some choices can never be undone.